Hello, dear viewers. Namaskar. Welcome to Moksha Media. By the way, I am Moksha Hiramat. In one way or another way, man tries to get an emancipation from the pains and problems of life. He tries to get it in many ways. Some of them are very easy and others may be difficult. The aim of life is to get moksha. But how to get moksha? What does moksha mean? What are the ways we have to follow? What does bhakti mean? How can we achieve bhakti? And what is the importance of bhakti in the present day? These are some of the questions which puzzle our minds. If we do not get the answers to these questions, that means in one way or another way, we have not tried to understand the life in a proper sense. That is why it is a binding to understand and to come to know the intricacies of life and getting an emancipation, a moksha in a life of a man. Dear friends, like it, share it, and subscribe it. Today, I would like to say or to share some of my feelings and thoughts with you regarding the Indian Bhakti movement. Most of you, in one way or another way, may have tried to know what does bhakti mean, what does Indian Bhakti movement mean. Of course, whatever the struggle it may be, India has its own unique way to participate in those movements, in those activities. It has its own understanding of the situation, mind, and matter. It has been already seen in case of Indian independence movement. Of course, that is the not only movement India witnessed. It has its own uniqueness in the history of mankind. And Bhakti movement is one of them. Then the question, is arisen in our minds. What is the bhakti? Of course, different philosophers try to give the meaning of bhakti in many ways. But bhakti is not that much of complicated as we define, as we understand. It is a simple one. That is what Indian Bhakti movement conveys to us. Bhakti means devotion. Devotion to whom? It is a devotion to God. It is a submission to God. It is a kind of belonging to a God. It is a kind of an attachment to God. A kind of thick attachment which cannot be unlocked without understanding the relationship between man and God. So, like this, bhakti can be understood, can be defined in a different ways. But of course, bhakti is all of this. It is a devotion, it is a thick attachment, it is a kind of emancipation, it is a kind of getting a moksha, and etc. etc. Of course, it is all right. Then what is the attachment of the word movement to the bhakti? Of course, if we want to enlighten people in the society, it should reach the minds and hearts of the people in a big way in order to make them understand. For the purpose of enlightening them, a kind of movement is required. It can be seen in many cases. And the same thing can be seen in spiritual field. That in order to enlighten the minds of the people, we have to form or we have to start a kind of movement which brings all the people together and which can bring a kind of change in the society, and by that the people living in that society will be enlightened. So for that purpose, that movement is required. And that is why we say it is bhakti movement. Of course, that bhakti can be seen anywhere in the world. What is saying Indian Bhakti movement? Of course, Indian Bhakti movement means a kind of devotion to God, form or formless, irrespective of caste, creed, class, color, etc. etc. And it has its own uniqueness in getting an emancipation. Of course, we say it is moksha. That moksha is the ultimate aim of a person in life. Moksha means to emancipate. Of course, emancipate is not that much of proper word to moksha, but it is a kind of synonym to moksha. Emancipation simply refers to the relieving of the mind and matter. But moksha is more than that of mind and matter. It goes beyond the earthly things and it travels in the field of spirituality. That is why Indians, in one way or another way, would like to get that moksha by so many means. And the bhakti is one of them. That is why most of Indians would like to participate in one way or another way in the bhakti movement. Of course, in order to get moksha, we have many paths. Generally, 4 types of paths have been identified. They are the path of knowledge, the path of work, the path of yoga, and the path of bhakti, that is devotion. We can simply say that karma marga, jnana marga, yoga marga, and bhakti marga. Pandits would like to follow the jnana marga. Persons of practicality would like to follow karma marga. And some persons try to follow the yoga marga. And all these margas, that is jnana marga, karma marga, and bhakti marga, require a kind of exercise, a bent of mind, a kind of cultivated habits. That is, mind and body should be bent, should be cultivated in order to follow karma marga, bhakti marga, and yoga marga. But common people can't do it as pandits and as a little bit knowledgeable persons. That is why common people would like to follow very simple and easy path. And that easy path is bhakti marga. Bhakti makes us feel comfortable. Bhakti relieves us from the stress and strain. For this, we have not to do anything, but we have to submit everything to God. We have to become a dasa of a God. Of course, submission to God is very important. That is the main feature of a bhakti marga. That is a main feature of the path of bhakti. A man, a person should submit everything to God. He should give up all the things which rule the society, the power, the property, the language, and etc., etc., etc. So, this submission is very important. In order to submit to God, we require something. In order to submit to God, in order to become a slave of a God, we have to pray the God, we have to praise the God, we have to make bhajanas, we have to make kirtanas, we have to bend our mind towards the concept of God, towards the understanding the activities and grace and gloriousness of God. By these activities, man submits everything to God. He becomes a slave to God. And by that, he can emancipate himself or herself from the pains and problems of the society, and he can get ultimately moksha. So in this way, we Indians try to understand the bhakti and its movement. Of course, the bhakti movement started in the regions of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, in the southern parts of India. It is a unique thing because so many people feel that everything comes to south from north, but here it is vice versa. It is travelled from south to north. If you know the complete Indian history, of course, the south has its own dominant and prominent role in building the Indian culture and civilization. So many South Indian kings and queens defeated the north and brought forward the tradition, the parampara of South India to North India and to world also. So, it is proper to understand Southern Indian culture and civilization, and the bhakti and its moment is one of that culture and civilization. Of course, when we talk of bhakti in southern part of India, we remember Nayanars and Alvars. These Nayanars are devotees of Shiva, whereas Alvars were devotees of Vishnu. And Nayanas and Alvas lived in different centuries, and they showed the path to get moksha through bhakti. Nayanas were 63 in numbers, and Alvas were 12 in numbers. It is generally said that the Bhakti movement is begun in Tamil Nadu and Kerala region of southern India in the 6th century AD of first millennia and continues in the 8th, 9th, 10th centuries of the first millennia and 11th centuries of the second millennia. Of course, these Nayanas created their own understanding of Shiva. They were the devotees of Shiva. They devoted everything to Shiva. They submitted everything to Shiva. And by that, they got moksha and they showed the way to moksha. The Alvas did the same thing. That is, we can see these two trends, trend of a Shaiva and a trend of a Vishnu in getting a moksha in Indian context. Of course, as the time goes on and on, others appeared on the scene. Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya and others shaped the thoughts regarding the Shiva and the Vishnu. Regarding Shiva and Vishnu. Of course, there are so many acharyas who do not want to focus on their names because they believe in the hidden secret bhakti trend. They followed the path of bhakti, but they did not want to show it to others, and they became the secret bhaktas, the secret devotees of God. And of course, in the 10th and 11th century, a philosophical thought is shaped. That is, man is one. He believes in monotheistic thing. He believes in God and he unions with God at the end. That is one type of thought. And another type of thought is that God is unique, and in the beginning it is dualistic. As the time goes on and on, it becomes monotheistic, and at the end man unions with God. And the other unique and special trend is this. That is, Prakriti and Purusha are the source of energy. They are the part and parcel of God, that supernatural power. Something is created due to the union of this Prakriti and Purusha, and It is dualistic in the beginning. As the time passes on and on, it unions with the God. It is at the feet of the God, and ultimately itself becomes a God. That is energetic, dualistic, monotheistic, and at the end it is monastic. And among the Shaiva branches of philosophy, this monastic philosophy is the unique one. And of course, in the 13th century, we come across that dualistic philosophy, that life and God, man and God. Man is different from God. Man cannot become a God, and man can become a slave to God, and by that he can achieve, he can get moksha, he can get emancipated. That understanding is also there. Of course, these four types of thoughts, play a prominent role in Indian philosophical thought culture. Two of them are concerned to Shaiva, that is monotheistic and monist, and then two of them, that is monotheist and union, monotheist, dualistic and monotheist, and dualistic belonged to Vaishnava philosophy. Of course, these are the main ways of philosophical thought in Indian history, in Indian philosophical history, whether it is south or north, whether it is east part of India or west part of India. So this can be seen in different ways, in different contexts. Of course, Nayanars and Alvars did it in the 6th century and continued it to the 10th century and 11th century. They showed the path of mukti through bhakti. Of course, at that time, the bhakti movement was at the personal level. But when we come to the 12th century of 2nd millennia AD, we have seen a different type of bhakti movement. And that bhakti movement is called Sharana Movement in the history of Karnataka, India. Of course, so many Sharanas participated in that movement. It is a unique moment in the history of humanity. It is the first and foremost movement in the development of human society, in shaping the culture and civilization of human beings at the world level in general and at Indian level in particular. Of course, especially Karnataka. Leaders like Basavanna led the Sharana movement. Sharana is a person, is a devotee of Shiva. A Sharana should submit everything to Shiva. He should not acquire anything himself. And whatever he has is belonged to God, Shiva. And he is a Sharana. That is, by submitting everything to God, he becomes a Sharana. And by becoming a Sharana, he can be emancipated from the pains and problems of the society. He can get moksha. Of course, this 12th century Sharana's movement has played a prominent role, especially in the history of Karnataka and India. It showed the way of moksha in a simplest way. It laid the foundation stone for democratic setup. It is a kind of landmark in the Bhakti movement in the world. The concept of parliament in embryo can be seen in the Sharana movement. When Bhakti movement in the form of Sharana Chalavali was begun, the concept of parliament, the concept of democracy was at the embryo stage. Sharana movement expressed that parliamentary concept in a micro level, and as the time goes on and on, it has come to a macro level. So, Sharanas have their own personalities. They pray to God. They compose songs for God. They submitted everything to God. They did not take into account the power, the property, and the licentious life. They composed vachanas. Vachanas are nothing but the things already said, things already proved. That is, already proved, time-tested things are expressed by using a common people's language. And those vachanas can be sung, they can be played, they can be read. So, in such a way, the vachanas were formed in the 12th century AD of Karnataka. Of course, there in Vachana Chalavali, I can say mainly three names. One is Basavanna, which is very well known. He was the leader of the movement. He was a social reformer of the movement. And another one is Allama Prabhu, a guru, that is a dancer turned preacher. And other one was Akka Mahadevi, a woman who participated in the movement, giving up everything, and she did not even care for the clothes. And in such a way, Akkamadevi participated in the Bhakti movement. Of course, there are so many Vachanakaras, there are so many Sharanas and Sharanayar, that is, woman devotees. They are innumerable. These three names are only the representative names I have given. Such people in that much of size have not participated in any Indian movement except Indian independence movement. In the first part of the 20th century. So, in such a big way, the common people belong to lower start of the society, participated in the Sharana movement. Most of them composed the songs, and they were not that much of literate, but they tried their level best to express whatever they experienced, whatever they felt right, in the form of a language, that too in common people's language. They used the regional language of Karnataka, that is Kannada. Of course, that Sharana movement is a trendsetter in Indian history, whether it is ancient, middle, and modern. And of course, it has given to literature a Vachana form which is unique in the history of Kannada literature. Of course, after the 12th century, we come to 13th century and 14th century. In the 13th century, the dualistic philosophy played a dominant role. That is, man is one and God is another. Man cannot become a God, but if he submits to God, he can be with God. But he cannot become a God. By submitting to God, a man can get moksha. That is what this trend preached to the people. And of course, I can give you the example of Purandara Dasa and Kanaka Dasa and others. Of course, Vyasatirtha nurtured Purandara Dasa and Kanaka Dasa. They were the followers of Vyasatirtha. And of course, Jagannatha Dasa was also followed them afterwards. And Purandara Dasa, Kanaka Dasa and Jagannatha Dasa were the devotees of Vishnu. They composed songs, they composed kirtanas, they praised Vishnu, they submitted everything to Vishnu, and they become the part and parcel of Vishnu. And by that they try to emancipate, they try to get relief from the routine work, from the routine problems of a man. Of course, when we look at 12th century Sharana Movement and the Dasa Movement, which happened on the land of Karnataka, we can come to know these things. That is, Bhakti movement provoked the people to be the part and parcel of God. And Bhakti is the devotion and submission to God. And between God and man, there is no agent, and man or a person himself or herself can contact God directly. There is no way of any agent or any third party. It is between first and the second party, but not the question of third party. Third party doesn't arise there, because Bhakti movement is at the personal level at that time. And whether they are the devotees of Shiva or the devotees of Vishnu, their aim is to get moksha in life. That is, their aim is to free from the vicious cycle of birth and death. In order to get that moksha, they follow the path of bhakti, which is the simplest form to attain moksha. And in order to convey the truth to the common people, they use common language. They use the people's language. They use the language of that region. It may be Kannada, it may be Telugu, it may be Marathi, it may be Tamil, it may be Malayali, or Bengali, or Gujarati, or etc., etc., or English, etc., etc. It depends upon the case as the may be. And once upon a time, the bhakti, that is praying to God, was belonged to Aramane and Gurumane, that is palace and preacher. But Sharanas and Dasas have brought that prayer, the right of praying God to the common people in the common language of the people. That is the greatness of Bhakti movement. The Bhakti, which was belonged to palace and preacher, has come down to the common man, has come down to the common people. And at that time, the devotees of Shiva were faced so many problems. Even though they were non-violent, but they were violently suppressed. That is, Sharana movement was a non-violent movement. Of course, dasas followed the same thing. Sharanas did not give importance to power, property, and licentious life. They give importance to the life of simplicity. That is a simple life and high thinking. They composed vachanas, songs, kirtanas in the language of common people. The songs composed by Sharanas are called vachanas. The songs composed by dasas may be kirtanas, may be songs in the form of Ugadi, Suladi, Mundige, Ugabhoga, etc. etc. Vachanas are sung. Vachanas are read. They are read very rhythmically. But songs composed by Kanakadasa and Purandara Dasa are sung with musical instruments in their hands and making a nritya, a spiritual dance. That is, dasas added to the songs, musical instruments and spiritual dance. That is the speciality of dasas. That is the speciality of devotees of Vishnu. That is, they composed the songs. They sang their songs themselves by playing the instruments and at the same time making a kind of nritya, that is a spiritual dance, which cannot evoke the passion, the lust, and the hatredness in man. That spiritual dance is calm and quiet, which makes man a peaceful and playful and sportive and joyous one. That is the special quality of these dasas. And anyhow, whether it is Sharana or a dasa, the poems they composed bear the names of their personal god. That is, in their vachanas, at the end of a vachana, the vachanakara names his personal god. Whatever god it may be, there may be many names of a god, but God is one, that is a Shiva. So, Basavanna used his personal god, Kudala Sangamadeva. Akkamadevi used the personal god, Channamallikarjuna of Sri Shaila. Allama Prabhu used the name of Guheshwara. Most of the Sharanas used the personal name of a god, which are static. But their understanding of the god is moving. It is a moving concept that we say in Kannada language, that is Stavara and Jangama. Stavara means static. Jangama means in movement. Of course, these Sharanas tried their best to combine the static and moving in one way or another way. Because whatever is static should move, whatever is moved should be a static at a particular stage. And it can be said the same thing regarding dasas, Kanaka Dasa, Purandara Dasa and Jagannatha Dasa. The personal god of Purandara Dasa is Pundarika Vithala. The personal god of Kanaka Dasa is Kajinele Adikeshava. And the personal name of Jagannatha Vithala, personal name of God of Jagannatha Vithala, Jagannatha Dasa is Jagannatha Vithala. Of course, Dasas were the devotees of Vithala at Pandarapura in the state of Maharashtra in modern India. Of course, different dasas prayed to different places, prayed to God, stayed in different places. For example, Sripada Raya Tirtha, Sripada Tirtha used the name of God Sri Ranga at Sri Rangam in Tamil Nadu. And Vyasa Tirtha used Vithala of Ampi in Vijayanagara Samrajya in the district of Hospit, that is the newly created district Hospit. And of course, most of the others used Vithala of Pandarapura in Maharashtra. And they used the common people to express the simple thoughts and feelings of the spirituality. Till that time, that is, preachers used the language which common people cannot understand. But these Sharanas and Dasas used the common language to enlighten the minds of the people and to make noble the life of the society. And of course, these Bhakti movement, that is the Sharanas and Dasas, were not afraid of anything. They were not after power and property. They looked down upon them. They were ignored the power, the property, and the licentious life in the society. They were meant for only moksha. That moksha is everything for them. That moksha is a kind of equality. It is a kind of fraternity. It is a kind of liberty for these bhaktas. And we can say these are the common characteristics of the Indian Bhakti movement, which is begun in southern part of India and later on spread to the northern part of India. After Sharanas and Dasas, the movement is spread to Maharashtra, and in Maharashtra we can name Jnanadeva, Namadeva and Tukarama, and it is spread to Gujarat. There we can name Vallabha Tirtha, and then it is also spread to Uttar Pradesh. There we can name Ramananda, especially Ravi Dasa, and Tulsi Dasa, and that another unique Dasa is Kabira Dasa. These Ramananda, Ravi Dasa, Tulsi Dasa and Kabira Dasa cultivated the culture of Uttar Pradesh. Of course, the Kasi in Uttar Pradesh played a prominent role in cultivating the culture and civilization of civilization of Uttar Pradesh in particular, and India in general. All these persons of Uttar Pradesh, in one way or another way, were belonged to the place of that Kasi, and Kasi inspired them and made them have a bhakti and inspired it to follow the path of bhakti. And of course, then it is spread to West Bengal, where we can say something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, it is gone to Punjab, but in Punjab it has taken a different form. Guru Nanak picked up good qualities from all these dasas, from all these bhaktas, and he formed his own religion, that is Sikh religion. Of course, that Sikh religion has followed its own way. That way, to a little extent, is different from the path of bhakti. That is, Bhakti Marga stands for non-violent way. That is the special characteristic of that Bhakti movement. Of course, even though Bhakti movement was non-violent, but it was suppressed violently in case of Sharanas of the 12th century Karnataka. So, the devotees of Shiva and devotees of Vishnu and a devotee of peace, that is all the persons, that is the persons belonging to the faith of Ram, Rahim and Shiva, participated in the Bhakti movement, and they set a trend to other people in India to follow that Bhakti in order to get moksha. So that is what we can say regarding Bhakti. In Bhakti movement, not only men were participated, but women also became the part and parcel of that Bhakti movement. I have already quoted the name of Akkamadevi in the 12th century of Karnataka, and I can quote another woman, that Mirabai of Rajasthan. On the one hand, Akka Mahadevi was a devotee of Shiva, and on the other hand, that Mirabai was a devotee of Vishnu. She was of a royal family, but due to bhakti, she gave up all the comfort of the royalty and participated in the bhakti, and she became a devotee of Krishna. She composed so many songs and sang them and got moksha. Even though women were participated in the bhakti movement, they were not feminist, because nowadays it is a kind of fashion to use the word feminism. Here the question of masculinism or feminism or neutralism doesn't come. It is a question of not any isms, but it is a question of humanism. It is a question of non-violence. It is a question of attainment of moksha through non-violence of bhakti marga. That is very important. We cannot say that Akka Mahadevi was a feminist. We cannot say that Mirabai was a feminist. They might be belonged to feminine gender, but they were not feminist, they were humanist. Feminist may be a humanist or may not be a humanist, but these women, that is women devotees of Shiva and Vishnu, were feminist in gender and humanist in nature. So these characteristics can be seen in the bhakti movement, and due to these characteristics, that bhakti movement differs from other movements in the world. And this bhakti movement, which is started in southern part of India and travels to the northern part of India, not only India, it has gone to Asia, America, Europe and Australian continents. It has created its own atmosphere in the countries of these continents. Of course, this bhakti trend is appeared in the northern parts of India in the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th century. And in the 18th, 19th and 20th century, things would have been different. There is also a sort of bhakti wave, but that bhakti wave is not that much of keenly felt as it is felt in the middle age of Indian history. I simply concentrated on the beginning and the spread of bhakti in the middle age of Indian history, Indian spiritual history. And if I want to say something about modern spiritual bhakti movement, it takes its own time. In the given context and in the given time, this much can be said of Indian bhakti movement. Of course, there are so many references, so many texts, so many things which could be read and which could be researched. If a proper research is made, we can come to know things, new things, new aspects, new facts. Those new facts would modify the lifestyle of the people. That means they would carry them to the simplest way of life and they could make the people attain moksha as much as possible. The aim of life is to be emancipated from the pains and problems of the society. That is what Bhakti movement did in the middle age of Indian history. Of course, there are so many other persons who were participated in the movement, but due to the time restriction, I cannot quote, I cannot say the names of all those bhaktas, all those devotees here. So, I can say the Bhakti movement is a struggle against, is a passive struggle against the power, the property, yes, life. It is a life of simplicity and nobler thought. It makes man to get the moksha in a easier way. That is what Indian Bhakti movement is. So, dear viewers, share it, like it, and subscribe to Moksha Media in order to share such thoughts with you. I see you again in the next episode. Thank you.